Round of applause. Yeah. All right, that's enough. Yeah,
Hey guys, there is someone I want you to meet.
Dave Hooker Show with Caleb Calhoun on Off the Hook Sports. Represented by T. Scott Jones, banksandjones.com, Tennessee's trial attorney. From the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studio, East Tennessee's #1 volume and customer service dealer, Ted Russell Ford and TedRussellLincoln.com.
Look, we're all part of the same team here.
Now to the Dave Hooker Show on Off the Hook Sports.
Welcome to the program with Caleb Calhoun. I am Dave Hooker. Do we have a lot going on? Well, for some Tennessee fans out there, unfortunately, yes. The show represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com. Coming up on the show, way more news than Tennessee fans wanted. There's no question about that. Jermod McCoy tears his ACL. How serious is that? The basketball Vols looked darn good. They beat Georgia, and I'm loving me some Zakai Ziegler. James Pearce is headed to the NFL. Not a real surprise, but I lament the fact that Tennessee's coaches did not use him correctly. Also, John Henderson in the College Football Hall of Fame. Is he a Tier 1 Vols legend? We'll discuss, and I'll share my stories of first seeing John Henderson, one of the biggest men I've ever seen, with just the goofiest, and I mean this is in a complimentary way, smiles on his face. Why? Because he was so excited to play for Tennessee. And I'll tell you why that almost didn't happen. Could the Vols have Nico Iamaleava past 2025? Don't doubt it. It's very possible. We'll have the stat of the day as well. Also, I think it's time to put a limit on Tennessee's assistant coaching pay, as Caleb Calhoun has that column for you on offthehooksports.com. And lastly, some college football changes being discussed. So we're off and running. Caleb Calhoun, how are you, sir?
I'm good. How are you doing, Dave?
Wow, a little too busy, and that's not good for Tennessee fans because Caleb, there's a lot of things going on, and they're not so grand. It's today's tough question. It's brought to you by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com.
Today's tough question. Boom. You heard that. Now take it. The Dave Hooker Show with Caleb Calhoun. Represented by
All right, here we go.
Jones.
Now, let's go ahead and dive into it. Today's tough question is this, Caleb Calhoun, and you came up with it. Let's talk Jermod McCoy, his ACL tear. How serious is this? I think it's serious in a way that has nothing to do with his knee or his potential play this season or his career. And I'm going to get into that. But first of all, just in terms of Jermod McCoy, who was working out in Texas, tearing his ACL, how serious is this for the Vols?
Oh, I think this is a major blow. And I don't care that people say he could be back by the start of the season. There's three flaws with that argument. One, how will he have lost a step or not if he's back by the start of the season? I mean, typically ACLs, you don't really lose a step once you fully heal, but it's possible. Two, will he be in football shape at the start of the season? And three, will he be rusty? But then beyond all of those things, guys, most importantly, Jermod McCoy was Tennessee's lockdown corner who's the reason you and I both agree, Dave, that's the reason the secondary did a 180 last year, right?
Yes.
That doesn't mean he doesn't have room for improvement. Because what happened when Jermod McCoy went up against Jeremiah Smith at Ohio State or up against Georgia? He kind of got cooked a little bit. And it wasn't because he wasn't good enough. It was because he was still young. He was still raw. He had some developing to do. The biggest problem with an injury in college football, when you spend the offseason rehabbing, is that you don't get the chance to be better and develop more to be better than you were the previous year. So now, Jermod McCoy, the development that he needs to help Tennessee take that next step so they can compete with the Georgia or Ohio State, that's not going to happen next year. Not to mention, I just mentioned Georgia. Georgia's going to be loaded with athletes no matter what. Forget the quarterback. Alabama next year is going to have a quarterback capable of running that system. They're not going to be the easy out that they were this past year with Jalen Miller. I'm telling you guys that right now. So Jermod McCoy will be tested a lot more against those schools, and he still hasn't proven himself against elite of elite competition, and he needed to spend this offseason getting better to do that. Now he won't be spending this offseason getting better. He's going to be spending his offseason just getting back to the level of play that he was last year, and we don't even know if he's going to do that.
No, you're right. And as far as all the optimism surrounding his recovery, that's what everybody says, right? I mean, nobody says, "Oh boy, this one's bad. He's out for the year." And to be real honest with you, I'm not going to call out any names, but there are certainly some reporters out there that would like to shovel you information that's directly from the coaches in order to develop better sources. Trust me, I've been there. So I don't trust any report that says he's going to be ready for the beginning of the season. And you just alluded to that. Caleb, here's my bigger problem with this. And I wrote about it on offthehooksports.com is you have an athletic budget that was recently announced at close to $200 million, right? Yet you have Vols all over the place, practicing everywhere on their own without the medical supervision that Tennessee is able to provide. And that comes with warm-ups, that comes with cool downs, that comes with all of that stuff. I seriously doubt that McCoy had that in Texas. Now, I'm not just knocking Jermod McCoy. I also do not know why Nico Iamaleava is in L.A. with Mike Matthews and Brew McCoy. I know Brew McCoy's from there, but why isn't Nico back in Knoxville throwing to all of the receivers that are going to be his targets this upcoming season instead of throwing to one, Mike Matthews? So I feel for and empathize with Josh Heupel, because it used to be to get home, you would literally save up $14 to get on the bus and go back home because you were quitting football. Nowadays, these guys have so much money. If he wanted to practice in Paris, he could. My issue is, and you tell me if I'm old fuddy-duddy, but after the Vols got beat in the 1998 Orange Bowl with Peyton Manning at the helm, Al Wilson was back in the weight room calling every single player to tell them it's time to get started on next season. Well, who's the leader for this team now? Because if Nico's in L.A., I've got a serious question about his leadership. Listen, the McCoy injury could happen if he was walking downstairs, but I would feel much better about it if I'm a Tennessee fan if it happened in their indoor facility. That is way different to me, Caleb, than going out on your own. And I have no earthly idea why Nico's in LA. I mean, it's befuddling. I mean, how many practices? You've got class starts next week, so they'll all be back on campus. But how many potential, and I'm air quoting here if you're listening on audio, mandatory practices could be held if Nico took the same stance as Peyton Manning? Again, I'm going to sound like the old guy, but Peyton Manning caught criticism from the NCAA and got the Vols in a little bit of trouble because he put mandatory meetings mandatory practice at 2 p.m. during the middle of the summer. Well, you can't do that. You can't have mandatory practices. But in Al Wilson's case, you sure as heck can have some insight into players' dedication, pass that along to the coaches, grow chemistry. To me, it's almost as troubling that Nico is in LA and not a part of this team as McCoy being in Texas and not having the medical guidance that he would have had in Knoxville. I think the much ballyhooed culture that we've talked about, I'm not saying it's dead, but I think that it's very much at stake right now. And if Josh Heupel wants to win a championship at Tennessee, he needs to reinstate that good vibe bill, because right now we know Nico's father asked for more money. Right now, it just doesn't seem like kumbaya land in Knoxville anymore. It seems the exact opposite.
Yeah, and we know things permeate from the quarterback, because let's be honest, Dave, one of the reasons Al Wilson was able to call those meetings right after the 97 Orange Bowl, or the 98 Orange Bowl, I guess, was because even though Peyton Manning left, Peyton Manning was doing that for 3 years at Tennessee.
Right.
And I think it kind of stuck out. I don't think T. Martin was going to have any hesitancy to help take on leadership roles. There was but if your quarterback, the guy that the team is built around, says, I'm going to go lollygag in LA and work out on my own, how the heck is the rest of the team supposed to follow?
I don't know. I don't know. It's something that I wanted to talk about early in the week, and but we had so much going on, and now Unsung puts in the message board. Merck and GMAC are throwing to other receivers. Maybe, yeah. Well, I would hope so. And I'll tell you what, if McIntyre and Merklinger look like they're even close to Nico, I know this sounds insane, but if they're even close, the fact that they stayed around town, if they did, means that I'm going to lean towards those guys. I never thought I would do this, but I'm questioning Nico's dedication to be a superstar player at Tennessee as opposed to his dedication just to be a superstar, period. Am I being too hard on him?
No, but I will also say we also don't know how much of this is his dad pulling the strings to try to make him do things like this. I mean, you probably know more about that than I do, but his dad could be so focused on trying to prop him up, get him with NFL scouts and have him work out with those guys, to have him in the position to do what he needs to do. Now, again, there's a way to do this without it being to the detriment of the team you're playing for, because I don't think there's any question that when Peyton Manning was at Tennessee, he was meticulously doing his homework about how to set himself up for the pros, right? Yes. Constantly. We also know that Archie Manning was very heavily involved in trying to make sure both of his sons got drafted by the right organizations, hence the reason Eli refused to go to the Chargers. People can hate him for that, but he knew that the Chargers were an incompetent organization because Archie Manning, as we know, did not want his kids to deal with what he had to deal with in New Orleans, with playing for such an incompetent organization for so many years.
Agreed.
And,
now, I'm sorry, go ahead.
But I don't think anybody, but what Archie didn't do was impact anything about how they were coached when they were at the school they were playing at. Never did he do something like that.
And Steve, to your point, by the way, your book's in the mail. It dropped in yesterday. My apologies for the delay. Steve says, I would hope that Heupel would know where everyone is and what they're doing. He could have given them time off. Certainly. Take as much time off as you want. Who wants a championship? If you want a championship, you don't take as much time off. I go back to that 98 team. They held full practices without pads during the summer. I mean, it was physical. It was crazy. Now, I don't doubt that Heupel knows where he is. Here's his problem. If he says, Nico, man, I just don't want you going out there. You should stay close to home and rally the troops and get some extra practices in. I can't call practice, but you can as a player. Nico could say, stick it, because he's got cash. If he hadn't messed up his money, is financially independent. And he also, if he's not happy, can transfer. So how serious is the Jermod McCoy issue? Well, I think it's a sign of bigger issues. And if you got big legal issues, today's tough question is brought to you by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com. Why Banks & Jones? Well, it's because they're Tennessee's trial attorney. You can play to win with Banks & Jones because they'll go to trial. You've heard of other lawyers. They say they'll go to trial and fight for you. They won't. They just want to settle. That's the easiest way out. Well, that's not Banks & Jones, led by T. Scott Jones. They won't settle. They'll go to trial for you. Tennessee's trial attorney. They play to win. Truly Tennessee's trial attorney when it comes to criminal defense or personal injury. Why settle? It's Banks & Jones. T. Scott Jones. All right, so I want to get to this comment on the message board, and that is Dan says they are not going to live on campus 24/7. Those days are over. I don't doubt that, but if you're going to be working out anyway, you should be in Knoxville. I mean, Dan, you can't disagree with me there. I mean, if you're working out, why aren't you working out with all of Tennessee's other receivers? You don't think Amari Jefferson could benefit from some work with Nico? I think it's a selfish move, and I think it's a sign of a guy that is really more interested in being great at football than a great Vol. And those are two very separate things. Bobby says, you idiots do all you can to stir the pot for clicks. Bobby, if you believe that, that's fine. I will tell you 100%. I've never said anything on the air in 25 years that I don't genuinely believe. So
yeah, we're just making a
Yeah.
big deal out of nothing when the starting number one cornerback for Tennessee just tore his ACL. Nothing to see here, guys. Why are we making a big deal out of that whatsoever, Dave?
yeah, no,
We're just manufacturing a story there.
well, yeah, and listen, the bottom line is the teams that are going to win championships now that the talent level is going to be spread out, Caleb, it's going to be the teams with the best chemistry. That is absolutely going to be the difference maker. And I thought Josh Heupel was ahead of the curve in that regard. And now I've got to wonder.
Let's address the question too of what will they do if Jermod is not ready to go? Do you think they'll move Ricky Gibson over to the number one cornerback spot or put Jordan Thomas? That's what David Speaks is asking. I think they need to go to the transfer portal route. I think they need to open up the checkbook, get another guy in. And I don't know who that is.
I would have no problem with that. We'll have something on that later on offthehooksports.com. If you can, please click that like button, subscribe as well. Game No Bueno said, I'm late. What did I miss? Well, I questioned the direction of Tennessee's entire program, but some people think I'm just doing that for clicks.
And the main story, mainly because Jermod McCoy tore his ACL.
Yeah.
Working out in Texas. Not working out in Knoxville, but working out in Texas.
Yes. And you have Nico and Mike Matthews working out in LA with Brew McCoy. Here, okay, one last thing, and I'm getting off my soapbox. When like Cooper Mays is in Arizona right now, I talked to him yesterday, and he is working out and getting ready for the NFL Combine. Guys, those drills, that 40-yard dash, that vertical jump has absolutely nothing to do with football. When they teach you to run your 40, your first two steps are supposed to be so long that you almost fall on your face. And in fact, I've absolutely seen players fall on their face in the 40-yard dash. And that's because you're taught that way. You would never play football like that. It is a totally different training method. So I don't even know what Brew McCoy and Nico might be doing. I guess Nico will throw to him in Tennessee's pro day, I suppose. But to me, Brew McCoy has to do some stuff at the combine too, which is clearing up a question about his injury background. But I don't get it. They shouldn't even. I mean, there would be some overlap. Let's say in a 40-hour work week, yes, you want to run routes and throw to a receiver for a few hours. But mostly, what Brew McCoy should be doing is dumb drills that the NFL makes you do.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think that, and when we talk championship teams, you're right. It's this kind of reminds me of. Do you remember when NFL had the voluntary workouts, but like Peyton Manning every year would like require basically that his receivers show up for those voluntary OTAs, and some would complain, but it's not just. I mean, it's twofold. Yeah, you may not have to go, but sorry, excuse me. Do you want a championship? Also, would you like a big contract? When you want a big contract, because if you work out with Peyton Manning, he's going to get you a big contract because you're going to get a lot of yards catching the ball. So, excuse me. Yeah, but yeah, I mean, that is a big deal. Now, to the root of this, do you think he'll be ready to go at the start of the year? Do you think he'll at least be as good as he was last year?
Jermod McCoy?
Yeah.
No. He's not going to be 100% by August 30th against Syracuse. And
by the way, they play Georgia the third week of the season.
Yeah, that's your goal. I mean, they're not going to come out and say that, but just like, do you remember when the goal was to get Cooper Mays in the Florida game? So he skipped the game before, but turns out he wasn't healthy enough. I mean, these guys, this is just logical. Sometimes we overthink coaching. It's logical to say, who cares about Syracuse on September the 30th? I don't know what Syracuse is bringing to the 2025 season. Who cares? This should be Georgia. You should absolutely be.
But he won't be ready by Georgia either, I don't think. September the 13th?
Well, I think that is at least realistic. Let's put it that way. I think that's realistic.
That's ambitious, though, isn't it?
That is still ambitious. Great word. Yep. I would choose both of those. It is time for Hot and Cold, brought to you by City Heating and Air Conditioning, 50 years in East Tennessee. Integrity matters. Hot or cold, brought to you by City Heating and Air.
Hot or cold, brought to you by City Heating and Air Conditioning. Exclusively on the Dave Hooker Show with Caleb Calhoun on Off the Hook Sports.
All right, Caleb Calhoun, the Vols took on Georgia on Wednesday night, and I'm just going to go ahead and start by saying that hot or cold, Sky Ziegler's hot. And I'm not talking about assist points, whatever the case may be. I'm just talking about general attitude, and I'm talking about the way he played with energy. That, to me, was by far his best game. No question about it.
Oh, you're underselling Zakai Ziegler, even still when you're trying to give him credit. Dave has been low on Zakai Ziegler from the start.
Not
never
low,
liked the guy.
not low.
He's been a hater.
Lower
He's been
than
a hater.
most. Not low, lower than most.
He doesn't respect heart. Zakai Ziegler is the definition of Butch Jones' 5-star heart. Okay, and I don't mean that in a negative way. Funny enough, but Zakai Ziegler. I'm just going to give you guys a stat real quick. So Tennessee trailed 26-21 late in the first half. From the end of the first half to the beginning of the second half, after trailing 26-21, they went on a 30-4 run. That's right, 30-4. Now, you ready for the Zakai Ziegler stats during that 30-4 run, Dave?
I'm ready.
During that 30-4 run, Zakai Ziegler scored 9 points. He had 4 steals. He dished out 5 assists that resulted in 11 other points. And he had an offensive rebound that set up 2 free throws made by Igor Milicic. When you add it all up, he was directly involved in 20 of those 30 points on the 30-4 run. And 26 of those points came on the heels of either a Ziegler score, assist, rebound, or steal. That run was 100% Zakai Ziegler. Zakai Ziegler himself just went on a 30-4 run, pretty much. He did all of that. Zakai Ziegler, this is why you love him. Because, even though Chaz Lanier is the best scorer, Zakai, he had an off night last night. We talked about who is the assassin for Tennessee. Dave, we learned Zakai Ziegler is the assassin for Tennessee. Zakai Ziegler is the one who says, when things get tough, give me the ball. Everybody get out of the way. I'm taking over. I'm not letting us lose.
Oh, come on, Caleb. Chaz Lanier is more of an assassin. Igor will be more of an assassin as he develops. His development reminds me a little bit of Dalton Connect, but a little further behind. And Darling Stone Dubar can end up having a bigger impact than Ziegler. Ziegler is at best the third most important player on this team.
He's the one guy who will, how Tom Brady, what was it? Skip Bayless used to call him Psycho Tom when things got tough. Like he would like turn psychotic. Ziegler turns psychotic when it's time to get clutch and try to turn things around. And he's the only one that has that extra gear. He's the only one on this team that has that extra gear. And it shows time and time again. He's not their best scorer. I agree with you. He may not even be their best player, but he's the only one with the ice in his veins.
Okay. Hot or cold brought to you by City Heating and Air Conditioning. So basically what we're saying is that Zakai Ziegler is hot because he's cold, because he has ice water in his veins. I like how you did that. And the guys at City Heating and Air will certainly appreciate that as well. He's not the only one we want to look at. Who else is hot or cold? Brought to you by City Heating and Air Conditioning. How about Gainey, Lanier, Meshack, Cade Phillips, all coming up. And it's brought to you by City Heating and Air Conditioning. 30 seconds from cityheatandair.com.
Hi, Mike Davis here with City Heating and Air, reminding you to always dare to compare. Our team provides quality local heating and air service, installation, and maintenance across East Tennessee. We use only the best equipment like American Standard Heating and Air Conditioning for your residential, new construction, or commercial needs. Honesty, dependability, and customer satisfaction have been the cornerstones of our business since 1961. City Heat and Air.
All right, hot or cold? Jordan Gainey, hot or cold?
Jordan Gainey is red hot. Red hot. He proved, by the way, this was a big deal yesterday, and I want to point this out. One of the big advantages for Jordan Gainey. He was only 1 of 4 from 3. Tennessee was 8 of 27, but Jordan Gainey still came away with 19 points. Why is that relevant, Dave? Jordan Gainey is now an option for Tennessee to manufacture buckets when they're not hitting from outside.
Yeah, I think if Igor's the X factor, then Gainey's the Y factor. He's like the next one, right?
Yes, exactly. I agree.
All right. Chaz Lanier, hot or cold?
Cold. And man, the minute Dave and I had the debate on Chaz Lanier, I'm just looking stupider and stupider by the day. Because I mean, it's like if his shot's not falling, it just seems like he has no other method of scoring, doesn't it?
No, it does. He's a spot up shooter. Dalton Connect could take it to the rim. I didn't know. I mean, I didn't have some great evaluating eye. I just played the odds, to be honest with you, because I think Dalton Connect is going to have like a 12-year NBA career. Jemiah Mashack, hot or cold, brought to you by City Heating and Air Conditioning.
Jemiah Mashack was hot. Jimmy Hyams called him. I think Jemiah Mashack heard Jimmy Hyams and was like, you know what? I need to listen to Jimmy. Because what was he yesterday, Dave? Had 11 points. He had 2 blocks. He was 5 of 5 from the field and 1 of 1 from 3. So again, like Jordan Gainey, he got into the paint and manufactured buckets. That's what Tennessee did all night against, by the way, the best defense in the SEC, not named Tennessee. That's what Georgia was.
Absolutely. Portions of the program brought to you by Hound Dogs of Knoxville. We certainly appreciate that. I'll tell you more about that, but I remind you that we're broadcasting live from the fantastic Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studios. As far as hot or cold, who else would you like to throw in there? How about the Vols as a whole? Are they hot now? Are they cold? Or are they a little bit of neither?
Well, I would say they're mixed. They're a little bit in neither because they're hot and cold at the time. They're not shooting as well as they need to, but they're finding other ways to win, which they didn't do last week at Florida. Cade Phillips is hot. Cade Phillips came off the bench in 15 minutes, dropped 10 points last night. I think Cade Phillips is the one post player on this team who can manufacture buckets under the basket. I like Igor Milicic, but Dave, he can't position himself and use leverage to score under the basket. And Felix Opera is honestly just, he can't score. So I think Cade Phillips is actually their best offensive threat under the basket specifically, even if Igor Milicic is their best offensive threat among the bigs, if that makes sense.
Interesting. Again, hot or cold brought to you by City Heating and Air Conditioning. Coming up on the program next, James Pearce opted to go to the NFL. This was a historically poor usage of a player's talent. And while I'm very high on Tim Banks, what they did with James Pearce is borderline criminal. And I am not exaggerating when I say that. Rick Terry Jewelry Design, they want to be your jeweler looking for affordable game day jewelry, a Tennessee tradition. RickTerryJewelry.com. You give me 2 minutes and we'll be right back as the show represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, BanksandJones.com at the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studios. More after this. Stay tuned off those. Why Banks & Jones? Well, it's because they're Tennessee's trial attorney. You can play to win with Banks & Jones because they'll go to trial. You've heard of other lawyers. They say they'll go to trial and fight for you. They won't. They just want to settle. That's the easiest way out. Well, that's not Banks & Jones, led by T. Scott Jones. They won't settle. They'll go to trial for you. Tennessee's trial attorney. They play to win. Truly Tennessee's trial attorney when it comes to criminal defense or personal injury. Why settle? It's Banks & Jones. T. Scott Jones. BanksandJones.com. Dave Hooker here for Dynasty Pools and Spas. Your home for the best spas and everything you need to jump right in. Relaxing? Therapeutic? Absolutely. But what sets Dynasty Pools and Spas apart from others is that you get everything with any spa purchase. You get the cover lift, the steps, delivery, and chemicals. When Dynasty Pools and Spas delivers your spa from their Athens location within 125 miles, you'll get your own personal hydrotherapy spa. Mention me, Dave Hooker, or Off the Hook Sports, and get $500 off your top quality new spa. Dynasty Pools and Spas, just off the Athens exit. Drop in and receive a free gift from Off the Hook Sports, Dynasty Pools and Spas. Mention Off the Hook Sports for a drop-in prize and that $500 discount, Dynasty Pools and Spas. To check out some of the Dynasty Spa models and to buy spa chemicals, go to dynastypoolsandspas.com. Dynasty Pools and Spas.
Now in its 45th year, the second and third generations continue Joe Newbert's commitment.
His vision of what this business needed to be, we still try to live up to that.
Joe Newbert Collision Center.
With our brand new location on Emory Road, Eye Care Optical is bringing East Tennessee's best eye care to your neighborhood. Doctors Johnston and Combs offer unmatched expertise and care without a trip to Knoxville. Eye Care Optical, now in Powell.
What the H?
Wow, I've never worked hard on anything. What a cool life.
For real? The Dave Hooker Show with Caleb Calhoun. Represented by T. Scott Jones. BanksandJones.com. Tennessee's trial attorney. From the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studio, East Tennessee's #1 volume and customer service dealer. Ted Russell Ford and TedRussellLincoln.com. Now to the Dave Hooker Show on Off the Hook Sports.
Alrighty, what the H today, brought to you by our fantastic friends at Ted Russell Ford Lincoln. I'm about to purchase a Bronco. You should too. I'm pretty excited about it. Let's dive into this. Caleb, if I told you before the season that James Pearce Jr., who was projected as the #1 overall pick in the 2025 NFL draft, would go pro after his third collegiate season, which was last year, you would have said what?
I would have said, duh.
Yeah, exactly.
Like,
but things have changed. Things have changed significantly. Here's how things have changed, Caleb. Let's start with this. #1, James Pearce is not as highly regarded as an NFL prospect. Why? I believe it's partly because Tennessee misused him. He dropped into pass coverage way more than he ever should have. Should have just been an edge rusher, wreaked havoc. And I know we were told, hey, he's pressuring guys, and you and I kind of bought that a little bit for a while at the beginning of the season. But the simple fact is, it's the worst misuse of a player since Leonard Little played middle linebacker instead of, ironically, edge rusher way back in 1996.
I thought it was 97. I thought it was a senior season when they did that.
I thought they moved him back to edge rusher, but we could
because his senior season they made him a third down edge rusher. He would play middle linebacker on first and second down, and then be edge rusher on third down, and he still managed like 10 sacks. It was insane.
Okay, so which is worse, or are they very comparable?
What they did with Leonard Little is way worse still, and the reason I'll say what they did with
to me, they're one and the same.
Okay, Pearce still they never moved Pearce to a position he couldn't play. Yes, he should have been rushing the passer more, but look, Leonard Little, for two reasons. One, you're wasting Leonard Little's talent as an edge rusher. That's the issue with Pearce. But the other thing is Leonard Little wasn't a good middle linebacker. No. He was too slow.
He was average at best. Now, but let me say this. At least with a Little situation, you had a vacancy at middle linebacker. They put Pearce all over the place, dropped him into pass coverage when they had a pretty good secondary and a pretty good – they didn't have great linebacker pass coverage, but they did have their slot guy in Boo Carter. So, I mean, you're dropping him into pass coverage when you were pretty good in pass defense.
Are we sure that's not part of why they were good in pass defense?
I don't think so. I don't know why he wasn't rip-roaring off the edge 40, 50 times a game. That should have been his job. You play, 60, 70 snaps? I know in 2022 they were like at the 85 clip, but typically you play, let's say, around 60 snaps. He should have been doing nothing but going after the passer for the lion's share of those reps, period, in discussion.
Are we okay? I get it. I still think more often than not he was rushing the passer. Now, I think they may have dropped him back in coverage more than they should, and I'm with you on that. But again, it's not like he can't be good in coverage. And I push back that they had a vacancy at middle linebacker in 97. No, they could have put Al Wilson in middle linebacker in 97. Again, they thought he was too small because back in those days, they thought your middle linebacker should be like a goalie in hockey, which is just ridiculous to think about. It was outdated then, funny enough. But Pearce, I'm with you overall. They misused him. I think they're thinking of Pearce, though, was that he's so dynamic. I think what we're missing, Dave, is that they had other edge rushers that they could use, that they can mix in, which is why they could drop Pearce back in coverage, because Joshua Joseph could be an effective edge rusher. Not to the level of James Pearce, but he could be. Also, when Jordan Ross is in the game, look, I told you guys this. I think Jordan Russell is going to end up being a better edge rusher than James Pearce was when it's all said and done. So by mixing those guys in, I think that allowed them.
I'm not trying to Dalton connect you here, but Pearce is at least going to go in the middle of the first round. So I will play the odds and say that you're incorrect. Even though my eyeball test wants to agree with you, actually.
This is kind of like, I think Rodney Garner is producing edge rushers the way Lincoln Riley produced quarterbacks a few years ago. I think that's what's happening. Matter of fact, we should do a topic on that. Is Rodney Garner the Lincoln Riley of edge rushers at this point? Because there was like a 3-year run where you had Baker Mayfield, Kyler Murray, and was it Jalen Hurts, and they all went like number 1 or something like that.
Yep.
And Rodney Garner's turning into that with edge rushers between Byron Young, now James Pearce, and then Jordan Ross next, and Joshua Joseph is probably going to get drafted too. I think they dropped James Pearce back in coverage a little more because of the talent they had around him at edge rusher, and they felt that he could be. I think there were a lot of timed routes against Tennessee, and they wanted to take those away over the middle. And so I think that was a big focus of them, because let's not forget, let's go back to the Chavis days, Dave, because you just talked about third and Chavis yesterday with Jimmy. And you talked about how Notre Dame screened him to death down the field one time. Do you remember one year, I think it was in South Carolina and Spurrier beat him, they quick slanted Chavis the whole way down the field?
Yes.
And if you just drop him in coverage one time and it's over, right?
Yes.
Just drop it in back in coverage one time and that quick slant is not happening anymore. And, I felt like now I'm with you. I do think they overdid it, because I think they already did it one time with James Pearce. They did it last year in the Citrus Bowl against Iowa, and he got a pick 6. But I also think that, are we not short selling Pearce's production, given how many
7.5 sacks? If I would have told you 7.5 sacks before the year, you would have said that's terrible. Our poll question,
I would have said that teams sold out to make sure he couldn't stop them, and I would have assumed that other players got sacks and racked up stats too. I've never been one that. Let's not forget this. This is why defensive ends should never do Heisman campaigns like Jadeveon Clowney did in 2013. It's so easy to run away from them, and they affect coverage in so many other ways. Don't you think? Tell me if I'm wrong. Is judging a defensive end by sacks, isn't that kind of like judging a cornerback by interceptions?
No.
It's not? You don't think it is?
No, because I can choose not to throw your way, and I can roll out the other direction. I can do a lot. But, maybe for a game, I can eliminate a guy. Tennessee did that in 2022 with Will Anderson, who I thought was a generational talent. Now that's debatable. But the poll question is this. Tennessee's usage of James Pearce was ridiculous. Fine. The D was great. Right about 50-50. And it's brought to you by our fantastic friends of the studio sponsors of the program, Ted Russell Ford Lincoln on Kingston Pike and Parkside Drive. If you want absolutely incredible selection, and you want fantastic service, basically I left them about what I wanted, and we're going to wait until somebody trades one in. They have the biggest selection of new and used cars, and when it comes to integrity and being great people, know that you'll be taken care of. Absolutely love Ted Russell Ford Lincoln. I'll tell you more about them here in a moment. But no, Caleb, I just thought Pearce would have a bigger impact before the season. I thought he would have 12 sacks. That's kind of where I had the number. I thought there would be a couple of games in which, let's say like Chattanooga or Kent State, and I know they didn't play him the entire game there, that he would pad a little bit with 2 sacks, but ultimately be a real pass rushing factor in every game. And I don't think you can make that statement. Can you, Caleb?
Well,
was he a huge factor in every game? Listen, if you're a first round pick, you should be a huge factor in every game.
You see, maybe you and I see defensive ends differently. I just feel like I feel like to a lesser degree, defensive ends can be an impact just as decoys because they draw so much attention from blockers. And I feel like James Pearce did that. So it's hard for me to say that. It's hard for me to say that in games he didn't rack up stats, he wasn't a factor. He was drawing double teams so many times, and I think teams were running away from him a lot, honestly. So I don't know. I think it's very easy to neutralize a defensive end statistically, you do it at your own cost because you got to free up other people to wreak havoc on you. But I think a lot of teams, am I missing this, Dave? But I feel like a lot of teams sold out to take James Pearce out of the game, which they willingly freed up, which you can do.
Okay, let me ask you this. Who played on the other side? And I hate to put you on the spot. I hate it when people do quiz broadcasting, but who lined up on the other side of Sean Ellis? Do you recall?
Corey Terry?
I think that's right. Corey Terry was a good player. He wasn't a great player. I think he had a short stay in the NFL. Why? Because Sean Ellis was dominating on one side of the ball. So let me ask you this. If your theory is true and you're saying that teams sold out to stop Pearce, then who benefited from that? Who on the other side got a handful of sacks because the protection was slanted towards Pearce? Who did that? I don't know of anyone. Do you?
I would venture to say, well, no, because most of the other guys who got sacks were interior defensive linemen. So you're all right. Omar Norman Lott, Dominic Bailey, and Jackson Moy were the other three. I would say maybe Joshua Josephs. Josephs did have 9 tackles for a loss on the year. So, but I'll give you that. Like, no one really stood out. Like, because you're right, Corey Terry stood out. We're about to talk about John Henderson. He was a defensive tackle, and because of him, Will Overstreet turned into an NFL draft pick, honestly.
Yep.
And so I do get your point. And you're right. Nobody really stood out to become a star. But, we also have to remember Tennessee rotated so much this year. And they did, I think, lead the SEC in tackles for a loss. Yep. So, I think that it was kind of a by committee of people that stood out on the other side. It wasn't like the 98 team where it was just Corey Terry. And also, I still kind of debate with Corey Terry standing out because Sean Ellis was a star in 98. But I think part of that was because Sean Ellis didn't command the attention that James Pearce would have this year, because you got to remember, Dave, that was his first year as the feature defensive end. He wasn't the star in 2097.
I got to be honest with you. I thought that teams did slant to stop him and put extra protection his way. And that's part of the reason that I was a bit surprised about how good he was in the NFL. Got to share something you need to know. Ted Russell Ford Lincoln is your home for the finest vehicles in Knoxville, new and used. I can be a little bit picky, but they're fine with that. I'm deciding on what Bronco I'm going to go with. And I tell you what, I kind of made up my mind, just waiting for the right thing to be traded in. And there's 3 or 4 that I could already go with right now. Ted Russell Ford Lincoln on Parkside Drive and Kingston Pike. Whether it's partnering with local businesses or sending someone home in their first car, Ted Russell Ford Lincoln loves to be a part of the special moments with their friends in Tennessee. Ted Russell Ford Lincoln views it as an honor to serve their friends and neighbors. That's why they're so committed to providing exceptional customer service. Nothing better than driving off that car of your dreams. Ted Russell Ford Lincoln believes it's a pleasure to do business with people just like you every day. Check them out, Ted Russell Ford Lincoln on Parkside Drive and Kingston Pike. This day in Tennessee sports history, Caleb Calhoun is what?
On this day in 2010, Tennessee basketball, right after beating number 1 Kansas with 4 walk-ons on the game because they had everybody suspended after the gun charges, Tyler Smith and everything, they turned around and beat another top 25 team, number 21 ranked Ole Miss. They beat them 71-69 in overtime. Wayne Chisholm had probably his best game of his career, walking away with 26 points and 12 rebounds. I know we don't like the phrase overachiever, but Wayne Chisholm is one of the greatest overachievers in Tennessee basketball history.
Actually, I thought he was an underachiever, and here's why. And it wasn't his fault. It was the blood clots. And I'm not, he had blood clots in his legs. Am I remembering that correctly? Didn't he have the blood clot issue?
Did he have the blood clot issue? I don't think that was Wayne Chisholm that had the blood clot issue.
Okay. Well then, I thought he'd had a very good career. Probably somebody can help me on the message board. I think I've misremembered that. Anyway, just forget that last part. It was a fantastic stat of the day.
No, it was a fantastic this day.
It was a fantastic this day in Tennessee sports history, and it's brought to you by our friends at Double D Piping. Let's talk some John Henderson.
Double D Piping provides full-service fire protection on any scale. From residential homes to government facilities, we can assist any customer through design, fabrication, installation, inspection, and demonstration of fire suppression systems. With 30 years of service across 5 states and a full staff with over 40 years experience, our quality can't be beat. Don't get caught watching what you could have prevented. Call Double D Piping.
All right, let's talk some John Henderson, who made it into the College Football Hall of Fame. And congratulations to him, one of the more beloved Vols and one of the more unlikely stories that I would like to tell you when it comes to a superstar in the NFL, because it almost didn't happen. And you may actually never hear me say this again, but the reason it happened is because the NCAA did something smart. So I'll tell you how the NCAA saved his career, Caleb. But first, what were your thoughts on John Henderson going in the College Football Hall of Fame? And would you consider him a tier 1 Tennessee superstar, which I guess would include Peyton Manning, Johnny Majors, Al Wilson? I mean, I like to keep that top tier relatively uncluttered. Is Henderson in that top tier in your mind?
He's absolutely in that top tier. And he's definitely in the top tier of the modern era. And that's why I dropped some names that we're going to compare him to in a little while. But John Henderson, Dave, I don't know if you know this. He's one of 3 players in Tennessee history to be a 2-time All-American while also winning the award for the best player at his position. Him, Steve DeLong, and Eric Berry are the only 3 players in that category. That is rare company. And I feel like I'm just going to tell a quick story. I was at another place back in the day covering Tennessee for a larger network. And someone asked me to do a Mount Rushmore of Tennessee players of the last 40 years. And I was kind of debating because it's hard. And you know this, Dave. It's really hard to do a Mount Rushmore. Like, okay, yeah, Peyton Manning, clearly. But, like, you know, there's a few others that are debatable.
I'm just going to tell you that John Henderson would be nowhere close to my Mount Rushmore.
And that's why Dave has no respect. John Henderson is very close to the Mount Rushmore. He just missed it for me. But look, we're going to talk about a few other guys. But the guy comes straight to me and he goes, Peyton Manning, Reggie White, and Eric Berry are slam dunks. And I came back and I said, why is Eric Berry a slam dunk over John Henderson? And this is where Dave and I are going to debate about this soon. But because I want to compare him to a few guys, because I don't think John Henderson should be slighted compared to some other legends in Tennessee. And we'll compare them.
Okay, I don't know how you define top tier Mount Rushmore, but you have to, I believe, agree with me that John Henderson was the second best defensive tackle on his team when he lined up alongside Albert Haynesworth.
No!
Okay.
Haynesworth was a better NFL defensive tackle. John Henderson was absolutely better in college.
Well, if not for the maturity issues, I mean, he would have been elite. But Haynesworth had some maturity issues. But I can tell you, Tennessee's coaches thought a lot more at the time about his ceiling than Henderson. So that's not a knock on Henderson.
Who drew the double teams in 2001? It wasn't Haynesworth.
So, quick Uncle Dave story. Do you remember Prop 48?
Yes, I remember Prop 48.
Okay, so here's what Prop 48 was. You almost make your grades, but not quite. So you go to a college of your choice and you can practice, but you can't participate in games. John Henderson was that player. That's when I was neck deep in covering that. He was this close. And if you're on an audio platform, I'm holding my fingers very close together. He was this close to never making it to Tennessee. And I'm going to tell you why. Because if not for Prop 48, he goes the junior college route. And I did a little bit of research on some junior college players, and one of Caleb's old stories happened to come up. But he is a guy that needed that affirmation early, I truly believe. And I think that generally when you look at recruiting, any prospect, I don't care if we're talking about George McIntyre, Nico, whatever, is about, depending on their ranking, at best a 70% chance of being a solid player. If you go back and do the research, typically 50% of a recruiting class contributes, 50% doesn't. That number's at about 25% when you go to junior college. And kudos to the guys you wrote about in this column, one of your old columns I found. And there have been some fantastic ones. Dale Carter, Leonard Little, who we mentioned earlier, Jabril Wilson. I could go on and on. Alvin Kamara is the latest. But I'm telling you, you wrote about 10, and what I saw, there are about 5 million high school prospects that didn't or haven't made the grade, went to junior college and flamed out. Why? Because that used to be on my beat when I worked with ESPN. Caleb, you could set up, I'm not joking, you could set up a home gym that is as nice as some of these junior college places. Academic support? Nada. John Henderson goes junior college. I don't think he's ever a volunteer, and I don't think he ever has a Hall of Fame career and a long NFL career. I think it came down to that. Prop 48 is a thing of the past. Why? Because you now have high schools that know to get their players ready, and probably some cheating involved too. But to get Johnny ready because he's going to be a superstar in college football. But I still remember John Henderson walking into the media day, and it was the fan day too. That was right before his freshman year. And I think I'm pretty sure he was wearing number 1 because that was just the number they had available. And here he is, 6'7", and the goofiest baby face I've ever seen that it was hard not to kind of fall in love with. I was like, I'm rooting for that dude. I don't know if he can play, but he got in and he was so happy to be a Vol. So his backstory to me is incredibly rewarding when it comes to covering college athletics.
That's an amazing backstory. And you're right, Prop 48. I mean, that's just so you know, I don't know if you know this, Penny Hardaway was Prop 48 at Memphis years ago.
I'll say I was covering a community college one time, no joke. Players had to sit out in the hall because the weight room, which was probably, I don't know, maybe 20 by 20 at the most, probably more like 20 by 12. They had to sit in the hall and wait for the bench press to come open.
That's crazy. But the other part about this is too, it's twofold. You're right. Like going to junior college, like really sets you up for more failure, but also John Henderson has proof that just because someone maybe didn't apply themselves and do all the things they should have done at first doesn't mean they're not going to be that person. There are some people like Brent Schaefer went to junior college and went to Ole Miss. Brent Schaefer never changed as a person, was always a diva, was always self-centered, and was just a total bust in a flame out in college because of that. But some people do actually change.
You know why I don't think he would? And I don't mean this as a shot at all. I don't think he would have because he was a little bit soft. He was so no, John Henderson. He was so incredibly talented that it made up for that. But there are guys. Hainsworth was one too. There are guys that are naturally kind-hearted and just good people, and that doesn't mesh well with football. That's why, and I would love to pull up the clip at some point that John Henderson liked his teammates to slap him across the face in the NFL. If that guy goes to junior college, and I'm glad everything worked out, I would bet my bottom dollar he never would have gotten out.
No, I believe it. Yeah. And as a matter of fact, let's just show it real quick. I'm going to show this because I got to give some of my thoughts on John Henderson too in a second. But
pull it up.
This is when he was with the Jags, to be fair. That's where it got called on video. But this is what John Henderson used to do before every game, guys, when he would play.
I do want to mention that John Henderson getting slapped is thanks to our friends at the Hemp House, the premier hemp dispensary online with a wide variety, great selection, and strict standards. Hemp House Chat with 2Ts.com. Hemp House Chat with 2Ts.com. Use the promo code HOOK for 10% off. All right, let's see John Henderson get slapped around a little bit.
Oh, Joe, that ain't good enough. Come on, Joe. Thank you, baby. Thank you. You're making blood come from my damn mouth. Baby. You gotta make blood come through the mouth. You can't just smack me and don't hit me hard. That's bullshit. When you hit a motherfucker, you hit that motherfucker. Let's kick their ass. Let's go.
How can you not love him? How can you not love him?
You know what's funny is that's another one. I've actually seen one where one of his teammates were doing it and he got slapped like 8 times.
Really?
Yeah, it was before every game. I haven't seen that clip. I thought you were going to play the one I'd already seen.
I haven't seen the one you were talking about. No, so okay, I want to point this out with John Henderson. A few things that we don't talk about. One, again, I just told you guys why he is on a tier of his own in terms of accomplishments. Okay, there are in the modern era, and I say when I say modern era, guys, I mean post integration. Fair? So it's 1968, 69.
Yes.
When you do a Mount Rushmore of Tennessee players during that time, there are 5 players you can name, and only 5. Reggie White, Peyton Manning, Al Wilson, Eric Berry, and yes, John Henderson. That's the top 5. There is nobody else, okay? I'm sorry.
Well,
a 2-time All-American who also won the award for the best player in his position. He's one of 3 players in Tennessee history to do that, and he was an NFL Pro Bowler. And by the way, I want to point this out. John Henderson was going to be a top 10 pick after the 2000 season, Dave. He left millions on the table to come back to Tennessee just because he wanted to.
Yeah, he wanted to be a Vol, which was part of what made him so beloved.
And so I'm going to do it. Should we 4 downs this a little bit with the players I named, comparing him a little bit?
We're having an interesting day with technical issues, so can we just not?
Okay, fine. Then let me just debate you with this. Let's
do this. How about this? I'm not going to depend on the production element, but let's give it a shot. 4 downs brought to you by our fantastic friends at Hound Dogs. I was there yesterday. The selection is unbelievable. Let's talk some John Henderson. 4 downs.
Come on, guys, it's game time.
4 downs. Can you count? 4 downs. 1, 2, 3, 4. The Dave Hooker Show with Caleb Calhoun, represented by T. Scott Jones. BanksandJones.com, Tennessee's trial attorney. From the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studio, East Tennessee's #1 volume and customer service dealer, Ted Russell Ford and TedRussellLincoln.com. Now to the Dave Hooker Show on Off the Hook Sports.
If I can get your thoughts on the message board on our new production elements and the female voice that I really like but can't hear because of technical issues. That's why Caleb's having to send me signals when to talk. Please say, hey, that sounds good, Dave. I wish you could hear it. All right, let's 4 downs it. As Cooper Mays would say, Cooper Mays here, first down.
First down, John Henderson at Tennessee versus Reggie White at Tennessee.
Oh, well, that's not close. It's John Henderson. Reggie White really only had 1 good season. You got to come harder than that.
But nobody would debate Reggie White's on the Mount Rushmore, and you just have John Henderson above Reggie White. So, boom, I'm already winning.
Well, I guess I kind of include what they did in the NFL because I think that further helps your program. And I think we would agree that Reggie White's the best pass rusher of all time. So maybe
Reggie
I'm
White is
factoring.
one of the top 2 NFL players from Tennessee of all time, so I can give you that. But
yeah, I think he's one of the top 3 NFL defenders of all time with Deion Sanders and Lawrence Taylor. I think Lawrence Taylor's the #1. But Tennessee center, Cooper Mays here, second down.
Second down, Al Wilson.
Can't even go there, not even close. Al Wilson's leadership trumps the deficit in talent, and I don't think there's any question that Henderson was more talented than Al Wilson.
See, I think you short sell Al Wilson too because he got hurt. But I agree with you. I take Al Wilson over Henderson in college and the NFL because, Dave, we forget this. If not for a neck injury, Al Wilson's a Hall of Fame NFL player. Al Wilson would have been the best linebacker in the NFL every year if he wasn't playing at the same time Ray Lewis was playing.
Yep.
And so that I'm gonna go Al Wilson, but again, that's Al Wilson is such a class of his own.
Yeah. Third down, Cooper Mays, Tennessee center. Hope everybody's doing well. I'm in Arizona working out. All right, Caleb, what do you got?
Peyton Manning. I'm not gonna sit there and put John Henderson above Peyton Manning.
A 4th down. I'm one of the coolest guys that Dave's ever met. Cooper Mays, all SEC center. What do you got?
Eric Berry.
Okay. Here's where I got an issue. Is I cannot take an elite defensive back over an elite guy in the trenches. Just can't do it. Won't do it. I'll give you that. You got me.
Thank you. And also, it's a crime that Eric Berry got into the College Football Hall of Fame before John Henderson did. It's a crime. It's an absolute travesty.
Yeah, that whole thing is a lot of politics, I've been told. I know that they're pushing hard to get Deion Grant in there. He'll be the next one that gets in.
He deserves it.
Yeah, he definitely deserves it. And there's a lot more politics than you would think with that. I was talking to somebody, I don't want to share who it is, and it's like you have to continually make these pushes and fill out these applications, and he's got a teammate that helps him with that because Dion doesn't care. I mean, he owns like 4 different companies. I don't think he really cares if he's in the Hall of Fame. I'm sure he would appreciate it. Do you want to hear my Dion impression?
Sure.
Okay, ask me any question because he started and ended every statement the same way. Ask me anything. How's the weather?
Drake or Kendrick Lamar?
Almost definitely. I'll take Kendrick Lamar. I love that Humble song and whatnot.
That's actually really funny.
Every single statement started with almost definitely, and everyone ended with and whatnot.
Well, guys, I want to point out something to the message board real quick. Dave said that John Henderson's not close to the Mount Rushmore Tennessee players of the modern era. But 2 people that would unanimously be put on there, Dave said he would take John Henderson over. Okay. So I'm going to play this game with Dave. Outside of Peyton Manning and Al Wilson, who are you putting on the Mount Rushmore above John Henderson?
Well, you and I at our 3:45 a.m. production meeting, we had a misunderstanding. I thought you meant of all time. So I had like Gene McGever and Johnny Majors. So that
Johnny Majors.
Modern era, you might have sold me. And then, if you were including coaches, you'd have to have Nealon. I mean, so no, I mean, if you want to say modern era, I'll roll with that. So who would be your 4 Mount Rushmore?
See, it's a tough 4 because there's 5 for me, and I hate leaving somebody off. And I'm pulling my hair out because you're right. You go pro career because you go Reggie White, Peyton Manning, Al Wilson, Eric Berry, John Henderson. That's your clear-cut top 5. And I don't want to leave somebody off. I really don't.
But you got to.
If you force me to, because he didn't stay till the senior season, I'm leaving Eric Berry off.
Okay.
I mean,
that's fair enough. I was at the Hound Dogs of Knoxville yesterday. Champions look good in orange. You can use the promo code HOOKED. That's HOOKED at HD Knoxville, and you'll get 10% off. Again, 10% off. Coming up on the
Adam modern, just quick. Adam is asking modern era. I don't do not after 1990, Adam. It's after integration, post integration. So roughly 1972, basically, is the modern era of college football.
I may be alone, but I think integration should have happened sooner. The show represented by Banks and Jones, Tennessee.
Dave, I think cancer's bad. I'm opposed to cancer.
Way to go out on a limb.
Remember the support our troops bumper stickers? As if it's like, oh yeah, someone's going to be like, I don't know if we should support the troops. Like, what?
I'm also anti-Alzheimer's. I don't know about you guys. The show represented by Banks and Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com, as we broadcast live from the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studios. Selection customer service cannot be beat. Coming up on the program, I really think that Nico Iamaleava is going to be the Vols starting quarterback in 2026. Is that good or bad? Stay tuned. More after this. Off the Hook Sports.
Well, Ted, looks like you're settling right into your new space.
Affirmative. Powered by the new Ford Lightning.
That would be incredible. For camping, tailgating, the options are unlimited. Why don't you take a little power for yourself, buddy?
Beep, boop, beep, bop.
Get into this new 2024 Ford F-150 Power Boost for only $53,300, or get 0% for 72 months on a Ford F-150 Lightning. Come see us today at either Ted Russell Ford location, Parkside Drive, or Kingston Pike, or online at tedrussellford.net.
Sports Treasures in North Knoxville is one of the South's largest sports cards and memorabilia dealers, featuring over 10 million sports cards from vintage to modern. Sports Treasures carries a full line of hobby boxes, singles, autographed memorabilia, Tennessee Vol collectibles, fan cave decorations, and so much more. See a museum full of collectibles at Sports Treasures, 4819 North Broadway in Fountain City, and Sports Treasures on Facebook. Sports Treasures, where the real sports fan goes to shop.
Community banking is about location and much more. It's about family. We reside in your community. We are a part of your community. At Commercial Bank, our commitment extends beyond the walls of our branches. It's displayed each day in the opportunities we provide, the money we give back, and the time we commit, all to help improve the lives of the people, families, and businesses that make our communities great. Commercial Bank. Life made better.
Double D Piping provides full-service fire protection on any scale. From residential homes to government facilities, we can assist any customer through design, fabrication, installation, inspection, and demonstration of fire suppression systems. With 30 years of service across 5 states and a full staff with over 40 years experience, our quality can't be beat. Don't get caught watching what you could have prevented. Call Double D Piping, the absolute best in fire prevention.
With our brand new location on Emory Road, Eye Care Optical is bringing East Tennessee's best eye care to your neighborhood. Doctors Johnston and Combs offer unmatched expertise and care without a trip to Knoxville. Eye Care Optical, now in Powell.
Are you ready to get strong? At NFC, we offer top-notch weight training and functional fitness, so you can build strength and improve your performance. Join today at nfc1.com or stop by any one of our 7 East Tennessee locations.
From the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studio, East Tennessee's #1 volume and customer service dealer, Ted Russell Ford and TedRussellLincoln.com. Now to the Dave Hooker Show on Off the Hook Sports.
Alrighty, welcome back to the program. The show represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com, as we broadcast live from the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studios. Selection and customer service that absolutely can't be beat. All right.
Dave and I are taking very strong stances on things we're for and against, okay? And
Yes.
if you don't say you're opposed to racism, then you know what's funny though? Half of that, do you ever watch? There were some. Tom Brady is the vintage broadcaster that we make fun of, like in a football context, who does this in football. When
Do you realize how you transition that? You were. It sounded like we are anti-racism, but Tom Brady, what a racist!
I'm saying in the context of football, Tom Brady's the worst of broadcasters that'll go when a player throws an interception. Like that's not what they wanted right there. Really? No, I thought they wanted to throw that interception right there, guys.
Oh, all right. So
I think Tennessee wants to win every game next year, guys.
All right. Here's the deal with Nico Iamaleava and bank on it. There's a better chance than you think. Brought to you by Commercial Bank, and Commercial Bank is our fantastic friends I bank with every single day. Member FDIC, life made better. Bank on it. There's a greater chance that Nico Iamaleava will be Tennessee's quarterback in 2026 than anyone. And I'm including George McIntyre, Merklinger, and that Faison Brandon as well. And here's why. As of right now, if the rules don't change, which would involve a lot, it would involve a union, and then it would involve a salary cap. And that would all have to happen in about 18 months for Nico, about a year, really, for Nico to not get paid and stay around another year. Carson Beck is making more with the Miami Hurricanes than Bo Nix did last year in the NFL. Carson Beck is making more than 5 NFL quarterbacks. So if Nico is elite, and I still believe he will be, he's going to be Tennessee's starting quarterback in 2026. They can pay him the same. It makes perfect sense to me. You show off your wares, you continue to improve. I thought that there was no doubt that Nico was gone after 2025, but there's a real chance, unless he takes a major step, that he gets a 3rd round grade. And while quarterbacks can move up in the draft and do, that would scare me, knowing that I could come back to goodness knows what it'll be then. Beck got $4.4 million. He could get 5. He could get more. So I believe firmly that there is a better than average chance that Nico will be Tennessee's starting quarterback in 2026. Carson Beck, and I know you and I are not fans of his play. Carson Beck just changed the game.
He did. Now, it's not you're playing a game, bank on it. This is about banking on yourself. Because here's why you have to be careful. Here's what you have to weigh. If you go earlier to the NFL and you become a great quarterback, you will make more money long term, because the earlier you go, the earlier you get your big contract, that second contract. But what if you're an NFL flameout? because you're going to make more your senior year in college than you will on your rookie scale in the NFL. That's provided you're not a top 10 pick or first round pick. If you don't get that second contract, you definitely left money on the table and maybe millions. So let's play this game real quick with Nico. Does Nico Iamaleava look like a top 10 pick right now, or like a guy that would get a second contract? Or is he a guy that would probably get drafted, land with a team, and then flame out after 2 years and go to Canada?
I see where you're going with that, but I'm not going to follow your lead because I think being a successful quarterback in the NFL is about what team and coaches pick you as much as it is about your ability. I think he has the ability. If he went to Sean Payton, yes, I think he would be very good. If he went to a lot of other places, I'd wonder, let's say the New England Patriots, Mike Vrabel, who I think is a good coach, but does he develop quarterbacks? I don't know that Nico would ever be good for him. So that would be my question.
So then you have to take a chance on getting drafted by the right team if you go pro. Put it this way. The safer bet is to stay in college and take that extra nil money. Easily.
Did you just call it nil money?
I said nil money.
Are you starting something? Or are we getting away from NIL using the acronym? I think
some
that.
People have already said nil, but yes.
No, I think you're the first.
Well, here's the safer bet is that, because here's the thing. If you take the nil money, the second contract could always be there if you're a good player. You just delay it by a year. Okay, but if you get the second contract, it doesn't really matter when you get it. You'll have generational wealth no matter what. So it doesn't matter how many years you've lost. So I'm with you. I say take the nil money and stay in college another year. Drew Aller at Penn State just came back another year. I'm going to tell you guys exactly why Drew Aller at Penn State came back another year. Because he could have gone pro and been drafted. Everybody saw Drew Aller throw that interception and play horrible against Notre Dame. It's very clear he's a third-day pick, and everybody who watched him knows he's never going to last past the first contract in the NFL. So take the NIL money and come back for another year in college at Penn State. I'm telling you guys this right now. You're right, Dave. It's more common than you think. The question becomes, and this is an odd one, does Tennessee really want Nico to stick around?
Well, and that leads us to the poll question that is up now. So what is the poll question? It's Bank on It, brought to you by Commercial Bank.
The poll question is, and I would like to apologize. I cut out my YouTube channel, or the YouTube page.
I'll go ahead and throw it up there. No problem. All right. So the poll question that's up there: do you want Nico back after 2025? Yes, he's great and improving. Nope, ready to move on. Wow, the results are a little bit surprising. Please vote. Bank on It, brought to you by Commercial Bank.
Commercial Bank is your neighborhood bank. What makes us different from other banks? We understand that every customer has unique opportunities, challenges, and financial concerns. We don't expect you to fit into the same box as the next person or business. Whether it's purchasing a home, saving for your child's future, or planning for your next vacation, we're with you every step of the way to navigate life's big decisions.
All right. It's roughly 60-40 that our listeners / watchers / viewers that, yes, he's great and improving. That's the answer to the question. Do you want Nico back after 2025? That's 60%. Nope. Ready to move on is 40%. That is pretty stunning.
Do you think now, let's be honest, the backup quarterback's always the most popular. I mean, Nico was beloved when Joe Milton was starting last year. But do you think there's a level of, given how underwhelming he was last year, of excitement over what George McIntyre can do now?
Yes.
And there's an idea of maybe George McIntyre is a better fit for Heupel and maybe has the moxie that Tennessee needs?
Yes. And he's an in-state kid, and the backup quarterback is always the most popular player on the team. And Merklinger didn't do anything last year to make you think that he's the future. So no doubt about it. I mean, I think there's some people that are just already done with Nico. I think that's insane. When I watch him, I see elite ability. I see a pocket that was crumbling around him. Caleb, I still think he's going to be elite in all SEC one day. So to me, it's a bird in the hand versus two in the bush. I think Nico is your guarantee all but that, pretty close. And I think picking McIntyre or Faison Brandon or Merklinger is pretty darn risky.
All right, I'm going to take this a step further. Because we're saying he could be back in 2026 for nil money.
Stop saying nil money. It's driving everybody crazy because it means nothing. And
no, it's driving you crazy. Don't speak for everybody.
It's on the message board. No nil. Nil, NIL, nil. All right, go ahead.
A mill and nil. Okay, anyways. Nico. Are we sure after 2025 that Josh Heupel will want the boosters to offer Nico the NIL money to stay around? That's the next level of this. Why would he's already commanded $4 million? If you're a booster, why would you pony up more money to keep him around if he doesn't play like a top 10 NFL draft pick next year when you know that George McIntyre is behind and will play for less? And is an in-state kid, and you may fall in love with him. This is why I think he might be gone, because I don't think Tennessee will pay him to stay around.
Well, I think that depends how good George McIntyre is. I mean, if you can, it's like the NFL. If you can save money on a rookie contract, then you should do that, right?
Yes, I agree. And I think at that point, Nico would leave. He would transfer before he would come back to Tennessee. It's funny you bring up Carson Beck. We're hearing stories now. It sounds like Georgia did want Carson Beck. It's just Miami just opened up a checkbook for him to get him. That's
definitely what I've been told.
Yeah, that's what some of the reporting was yesterday. It sounds like Alabama wanted Carson Beck too, funny enough. And so looks like Miami just offered him the most, I think overpaid, if I'm being honest with you. But we'll see how that goes.
I agree with that. I think it's pretty soft that he would up them both on his teammates. That to me is
he wants to be he's a 20-year-old who's got a really hot influencer girlfriend in Miami. You don't want to hang out with your influencer girlfriend in Miami all the time on South Beach in your Lambo?
I guess. Can you pull up? What does she look like? Is she that good looking? It's like the 5th time I've heard that. But there's no woman that would make me move that far just for, I don't know, a little bit more cash. I'm sure Georgia was going to pay him close to $4 million. Joe Newbert Collision Center for nearly 50 years. Newbert Collision Center has been East Tennessee's best choice for quality repair work and fantastic customer service. JoeNewbertCollision.com. JoeNewbertCollision.com. So let's see a picture of this young lady that he moved to Miami for. Are you able to pull up a picture of her? She's an influencer. Hey-o.
And she plays for Miami. She plays for Miami, the Hurricanes.
Plays what?
Basketball.
Oh. Okay. She's pretty.
It's pretty hot, right?
You're at the age where that sounds super creepy. I just warning you.
I mean, I'm just saying.
She is not a bad-looking lady. But
and she has a twin.
And she has a twin?
She has a twin. Yeah, they're twins.
Like Kanye, I would marry Kate and Ashley.
Yes.
I will say this. Listen, they could have had a fantastic relationship. Take that down. I feel like a creepy old man. They could have had a fantastic relationship in a year when he goes to the NFL. I mean, come on. It's a total cop-out. Yes, you get
What if she says, if you come to Miami now, you can date me and my twin?
That's weird. All right. The show represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com. Twins just in general are weird. Would everybody agree with that? Is anybody a twin on the message board? One of my best friends has twins, and they're now 20 years old, and I still cannot tell one from the other at all.
Oh, you're just talking about the concept of twins. Never mind. I thought you were talking about something else.
No, it's just kind of weird, isn't it? So what do you think of Carson Beck's move? If Nico did this, what would you think?
I would think, and if I'm Tennessee, I would be like, okay, bye. He like George McIntyre, get him ready. So I think McIntyre is already a little bit bigger than Nico was when he arrived. So I think he's more ready as a true freshman than Nico was as a true freshman.
Well, and let's put some of this on Nico. I mean, let's not forget this. He came in underweight, and he wasn't ready to play at the beginning of last season. Widely reported, we've reported it. He was not ready, and as according to somebody that was in the huddle with him, his play call sounded like this. And that's about, and everybody had to say, what in the world are you talking about? So he was clearly not ready to play. The Carson Beck thing, to me personally, seems like weak sauce. It seems like a guy who's chasing money. Seems like a guy who's chasing a girl. I don't know. Did you ever have any allegiance to Georgia? I mean, did you ever really care what happened to them? It just, to me, I always thought players should be paid, but I will say that it's gone light speed past where I thought it might. Peak IV Hydration, South Knoxville and Sevierville. Live life to your fullest. Hydrate, rejuvenate, elevate your health with Peak IV Hydration. If we can drop that link in the chat, then I want to go ahead and do that and remind you that you can order the patches online, and they will absolutely give you energy or hydrate you, whichever you may choose. Also want to thank our friends at Quality Tire Pros, serving Chattanooga's community since 1957. All major brands of tires, full service automotive, brakes, alignments, oil changes, more. QualityTirePros.com, QualityTirePros.com. Tell Bo that Dave Hooker at Off the Hook Sports said hello. Let's get to stat of the day. It is time for the stat of the day, and it's brought to you by our friends at Work Trucks. What do you got, Caleb, for the stat of the day?
Dave's least favorite basketball player ever for Tennessee, who he just thinks should be like taken out back and like, shot in the leg, the way he says I do with punters. Zakai Ziegler is officially the school's all-time leader in steals. After 6 steals last night, now has 215. He's ahead of Santiago Vescovi, who had 212. Vincent Yarborough's third with 211. CJ Watson is fourth. Chris Lofton is fifth. And he hasn't even finished his 4th season yet, and he missed a whole season due to an injury.
Interesting. Work Trucks, all about trucks, right truck, right place, right time.
Hold that L, Dave.
What's that?
I said hold that L.
What L?
The L on your hatred of Zakai Ziegler.
Oh.
And admit that you were wrong and apologize to the man.
Okay, who's the better player? Who would you pick to lead your team? Would it be Zakai Ziegler or would it be Tony Harris?
Zakai Ziegler. Like, is that even a question?
No. One was way more talented. I mean, Harris was pretty darn good. Work Trucks, all about trucks. Trucks are actually available to help you maximize your profits by having the right work vehicle available. The perfect work vehicle doesn't break down, has all the space to carry what you need. That's what Work Trucks is intent on offering, while other dealerships just can't do it. Contract is about time. Process quick and easy with Work Trucks cargo vans, utility body trucks with an iPod work bodies installed. If you're a contractor, you need to know Work Trucks, and that's a fact. Work Trucks, they've got the trucks that your business has to have. They have it right there, Clinton Highway in Knoxville, downtown Birmingham. The entire inventory is online at worktrucksllc.com. Want to make sure you have the perfect vehicle that you have to have. Work Trucks with the next LLC.com, proud supporters of the Tennessee Vols. Coming up on the program, should the Vols limit how much they pay their assistants to funnel more of that money to NIL? The show represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com, as we broadcast live from the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studios. You won't find a better selection and better customer service. Off the Hook.
Hey, Ted, it's time to save some cash to our New Year's Bash.
Savings is my prime directive. Let's see what you got, Nick.
Right now, you can save up to $10,000 on new Ford F-150s. Beat that, Ted.
Most impressive, but how about 0% for 72 months on Ford Lightning or Ford Mustang Mach-E?
Ted Russell Ford has huge savings on whatever you're looking for.
This checks out.
Come see us today at either Ted Russell Ford location, Parkside Drive, or Kingston Pike, or online at tedrussellford.net.
Now in its 45th year, the second and third generations continue Joe Newbert's commitment.
His vision of what this business needed to be, we still try to live up to that.
Joe Newbert Collision Center.
Having been in the jewelry industry for a long time in the Knoxville community, I saw a need for a jeweler, a real jeweler.
Our ability to do these designs has really been based on the customers bringing new things in and challenging us as a store. Our goal is not to tell anybody what they want. Our goal is to listen to what they want and then help them get there.
Schedule your consultation today to get your special someone the perfect custom gift just in time for the holidays.
Hi, Mike Davis here with City Heating and Air, reminding you to always dare to compare. Our team provides quality local heating and air service, installation, and maintenance across East Tennessee. We use only the best equipment like American Standard heating and air conditioning for your residential, new construction, or commercial needs. Honesty, dependability, and customer satisfaction have been the cornerstones of our business since 1961. City Heat and Air.
There's repair.
Double D Piping provides full-service fire protection on any scale. From residential homes to government facilities, we can assist any customer through design, fabrication, installation, inspection, and demonstration of fire suppression systems. With 30 years of service across 5 states and a full staff with over 40 years experience, our quality can't be beaten. Don't get caught watching what you could have prevented. Call Double D Piping, the absolute best in fire prevention.
A guy with a lot of jobs, but this one is the most important.
This is not government work. As such, I treat it with care and attention.
Until someone else calls. The Dave Hooker Show with Caleb Calhoun. Represented by T. Scott Jones. BanksandJones.com. Tennessee's trial attorney. From the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studio, East Tennessee's #1 volume and customer service dealer. Ted Russell Ford and TedRussellLincoln.com. Now to the Dave Hooker Show on Off the Hook Sports.
All right, welcome back. The show represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, BanksandJones.com. I'm just going to go ahead and be honest with you. I'm playing injured a little bit. For some reason, my separated shoulder is absolutely killing me, and we're having some technical issues with some new equipment I bought. So I hope everybody likes the new production elements, and I was super excited to roll them out. Here's the problem. I can't hear them. So, Caleb, you just let me know that they're doing good, and maybe you could start bringing us back for break. And, man, I don't drink anymore, but I could use a cold one. All right, the show represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, BanksandJones.com, live from the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studios. Caleb has an idea, which I'm going to go ahead and tell you on the front end. I think it's crazy. Should Tennessee be judicious and or limit its assistant coaching pay rate to spend more on NIL? Caleb, Tim Banks was the most recent to, according to Chris Lowe of ESPN, to re-up his contract. That seems to just be a matter of time. You also have Mike Eckler and Willie Martinez, who coaches linebacker and special teams and defensive backs, respectively, that are awaiting to see if they'll be retained. So, Caleb, I don't necessarily think that you have to bend over backwards for either Eckler or Martinez. So I guess this question is twofold. I would not hold back any money from Banks because you know how high I've been on him the whole time. I think he is integral to Tennessee potentially winning a championship. And I know that some schools, including Miami, came at him with some serious cash. As for the other two, sorry. You know, I feel like there are replacements out there. If they want to go give it a shot at Norfolk State, go for it. But I don't think either one of those guys, and I don't want to sound catty here, but I don't think either one of those guys are elite coaches. Now, I know Eckler brings energy, and I know Martinez is a good to great recruiter, but I guess I'm answering it. I got one foot on the dock, one on the boat. I'm paying 3 coaches, if I'm Tennessee's athletic department, whatever they want. Basically, Heupel, Garner, Rodney Garner, the defensive line coach, and Banks. The other dudes, the negotiations are going to have a much different feel.
So you don't think I'm crazy then?
I don't think you're crazy. I think the question is multi-layered. Let's put it that way. And I always think you're crazy, to be honest.
Let me unleash. Okay, so I'm not really going to unleash. I'm just going to say some things that may be uncomfortable for people to hear.
I'm scared.
I love the job Tim Banks has done. I'm a huge fan. Chris Lowe reported yesterday that with his extension, his raise goes from $1.5 to $2 million. I'm not going to sit here and say he didn't earn that. He's done a tremendous job.
I mean, you know what $2 million is nowadays? $2 million is about the same as when I started covering football. It was the magic 250,000 number. That when you hit that, you were considered one of the top coordinators in the nation. And Tennessee's John Chavis and David Cutcliffe did eventually hit that, I believe. But I actually remember a time when the assistant coaches were making, Caleb, $75,000 a year.
So literally it was like a job. They literally had to have a job. Like,
yeah.
Regularly.
And they didn't get multi-year contracts. And if you think about it, with the erratic nature of coaching, they could suddenly not have a job, have to move their family across the nation. I don't feel sorry for coaches now because they're independently, financially independent if they've done a good job. But back then, I felt for them. I really did.
Okay. So let's talk about, let me, first of all, before anybody tries to correct me on this, I get it. NIL money is not the same as what a school is paying players technically. In reality, it is. Because any money that is paid out is less money that donors have to contribute. So with that in mind, all the money's basically in a pot. You agree with me on that, right, Dave? Even
well, I think they recently released that Tennessee's athletic department was valued at $275 million, which was a monster jump from the year before. I think they correlate with each other. I think if you've got a school that's spending that much money in donations and sorts of things, then you're going to have advertisers and guys like me that want to hire players. So I think they go hand in hand. I don't think they're directly correlated. Fair?
They're not, but like it's like whatever the school spends, whatever the school can spend, takes away from what the donors have to spend to supplement. It's like it's an accounting trick, is what I'm saying. In reality, it's nothing more than an accounting trick.
Well, and Caleb, to your point, let's remember this. It sounds funny to say, Tennessee and their athletic department is a nonprofit. So they have to spend every dollar that comes in every year. That's why bowl games, they would oftentimes lose $50,000 or so, despite getting, a $2.5 million payout. It's because they took every Bob, Judy, and Tom out to Arizona to watch the Vols get thumped by Nebraska.
Yes, exactly. It's very similar to, just to throw this out there for a minute, back in the, during the 2008 crash, you had all these CEOs like living in fancy jets and like having fancy hats and things like that. But they'd be like, but my company went under. That's my personal income. As if you can't help save the company by cutting your personal income. That's an accounting trick. Like,
well,
that's
yeah.
what.
And I mean, there's been times where maybe somebody on this very show has done that. So yeah, I mean, that's part of it.
So the point I'm getting at is,
okay, go ahead.
So yeah, I've been going around the clock to bring this up. So the $500,000 that was extra increase that was given to Tim Banks, make no mistake, that's connected to the NIL money that's spent on players. The NIL budget.
Wait. It's really not though.
It is, because that's $500,000 more that they now have to solicit from boosters for other expenses.
Okay, we'll have to agree to disagree on that. But go
ahead.
So
that's what I'm saying. It's still connected. That means we're talking an NIL budget of $10 to $20 million at the most generous. And I mean, at the most generous, that's enough to buy one elite starter on a football team. Maybe two. $500,000.
Okay.
Now let's get to this. Let's talk about the value of coaches in X's and O's versus Jimmy's and Joe's. On an overall level, I think even at college, once you get to the tippy top, Jimmy's and Joe's outweighs X's and O's. I think that's even more prevalent on defense. I agree that Tim Banks is a great defensive coordinator. I think defense is so much more predicated on Jimmy's and Joe's than X's and O's, though, that I think coaching is much less relevant on defense than offense. And I mean, let's talk about the historically great defenses of college football and NFL history. No one says, man, that defensive coordinator was drawing up plays that nobody could think of. No, we name players. Okay. We name, like, if you go just to think of, you just brought up the Giants. You brought up Lawrence Taylor earlier. Yes, Bill Belichick was their defensive coordinator. I don't think Bill Belichick is famous because he was the Giants defensive coordinator. That Giants team was famous because they had Lawrence Taylor. Okay.
Pretty good point.
And another one, the 2000 Ravens, probably the greatest defense of all time. Who was even their defensive coordinator that year?
I don't know. I've never seen a group of dudes more athletic and bigger than when I covered the Titans a lot than that crew. I mean, you remember cornerback Christian McAllister?
Oh, yes.
I think his butt was taller than me. Like he was huge.
And that's the point. You covered them, and you don't even remember their defensive coordinator from that
I don't. I remember, was it Brian No, what was his name?
Brian Billick?
Brian Billick. I remember he was like the most awesome guy to cover. I said, I was hoping to get a one-on-one with you. And he said, well, let's step in here. It's more quiet. He was like the coolest guy ever. And doesn't he come across as a jerk? But he was cool to me. Sorry.
You are making my point. Legendary defenses are remembered for their players, not their coaches, because defense is, I'll say this. Offense is about 50% X's and O's, 50% Jimmy's and Joe's. Is that fair?
Oh, man. I think it depends. I think it depends on what offense you're running. I'm not trying to skip the question here, Carol.
Elias is right. It was Marvin Lewis, but nobody remembers that it was Marvin Lewis coaching the Ravens that year.
Oh, he was good.
But no one's like that Ravens defense. Marvin Lewis leading them.
Yeah, with Tony Siragusa, Ray Lewis, Christian McAllister, we all would have been fine.
I'm saying defense, and I'm bringing this up with Tim Banks, is about 90% Jimmy's and Joe's, 10% X's and O's. No matter.
Here's where you and I differ. The word prospect does not mean guarantee, correct?
Correct.
Okay. So you're talking about spending money on high school prospects or spending money on guys to stay in-house? Which one? Because there's a big difference.
How about spending money in the transfer portal on proven guys? Wherever you spend it. I don't know. Just spending money on better players. Spending money to make sure your team is at your talent is at where it needs to be.
Okay. I think with Tim Banks, you get something proven. So again, I feel like we're supposed to take these hard stances, I guess, because of what Skip Bayless has done in his crazy career. But we're not going to be like that. We're genuine. I'm going to say that I agree with you when it comes to finding guys in the transfer portal like Jermod McCoy or guys like that. I'm going to say I agree with you when it comes to paying Nico a little bit more money to stay around. I'm going to say I disagree with you if you're spending a lion's share of that money on high school prospects. I think NIL is shifting away from that and should.
Okay.
I mean, you have to pay them to stay competitive. Don't get me wrong. Josh Heupel's not going to call up and say, "Yo, I know this school offered you $100,000. I've got a $50 for you. I got a $50 bill for you." You have to be competitive, but you can't overspend like Tennessee arguably did with Nico.
But see, at this point, we're talking about an NIL strategy regarding personnel of players. I'm just saying on a much more macro level, the money should be more geared towards that, however you strategize it, than it should be on the coach and on defense. Because I think, and I know this, I mean, I get it. Like the greatest coach of all time is a defensive guy in Nick Saban. Nick Saban's defenses were so great because he was like getting world-class cornerbacks that were so athletic that could do things that nobody else could do. Okay. Like if Nick Saban, I mean, like, let's be honest. When Nick Saban was at Michigan State, guys, he was 500 for the first 4 years there. Okay, so what I'm saying is that defensive coaches are so much more a product of the talent that they're coaching. You brought up.
Okay. Again, you're winning me over because as much as I like Banks's scheme early in his career at Tennessee, they still were woeful on defense. So you're bringing me to your side.
And you're not, and I know this about you, Dave. You are not you consider John Chavis's defense very simplistic. It was still historically great in 1998. Didn't matter. They had the talent.
It's true.
So, I mean, I think we oversell like the Nick Sabans and the Kirby Smarts and people like that. But I mean, again, Nick Saban's a great coach. I think most of what he did defensively, you and I could have coached those defenses, Dave, because of how loaded they were.
Yeah, I would agree. I could have done as good a job in the second half of the 2001 SEC championship game. I guarantee you that. Now, to Chavis's credit, a week before that, his Prowler package was the gem of his coaching career. So I don't know that we would have come up with that, but maybe we would have, honestly, because Tennessee was such an underdog. It was kind of like, go all in, do something crazy because you're not going to beat Florida straight up. So, but I think I don't want to sound like I'm ripping on John Chavis, but I think there are probably 25 other defensive coordinators in that era that could have done the same thing with Tennessee's defense.
Yeah, and let's talk specifically that 2001 year, that Miami team that was the greatest team of all time. Does anybody remember their defensive coordinator? That's probably the greatest defense of all time when they had Ed Reed and Vince Wilfork. And who else did they have that's in the Hall of Fame that we just, that just like a litany of Hall of Famers on that defense?
Yeah, I remember being in Miami, and I tend to not watch the ball because it's on replay. But it was not hard to focus on the defense because Vince Wilfork was absolutely fun to watch. I stared at him the entire game.
He was. Oh, I remember that game, 2003, where he was blowing up Tennessee's offensive line. Casey Clausen, and a veteran move, drew a face mask on Vince Wilfork when he should have gotten sacked one time. I'm kidding. I don't think Clausen did that on purpose. But the point is, spend money on the talent. And I actually think in general, overall, school money should be more directed towards the Jimmys and Joes than the coaches going forward. Okay. That's going to happen.
New poll question that is up, and that is, wow, who would you pay if you could only pay one? Tim Banks or Nico? And whoa, the numbers are crazy one-sided. Hang tight. Brought to you by Dynasty Pools and Spas. Dave Hooker here for Dynasty Pools and Spas, your home for the best spas and everything you need to jump right in. Relaxing, therapeutic, absolutely. But what sets Dynasty Pools and Spas apart from others is that you get everything with any spa purchase. You get the cover lift, the steps, delivery, and chemicals. When Dynasty Pools and Spas delivers your spa from their Athens location within 125 miles, you'll get your own personal hydrotherapy spa. Mention me, Dave Hooker, or Off the Hook Sports, and get $500 off your top quality new spa. Dynasty Pools and Spas, just off the Athens exit. Drop in and receive a free gift from Off the Hook Sports, Dynasty Pools and Spas. Mention Off the Hook Sports for a drop-in prize and that $500 discount, Dynasty Pools and Spas. To check out some of the Dynasty Spa models and to buy spa chemicals, go to dynastypoolsandspas.com. Caleb, it is so one-sided. I am stunned. And usually I feel like I have a pretty good idea of where these poll questions are going to go. Who would you pay, Tim Banks or Nico? I don't know if you've looked. Have you looked?
I looked.
Okay, 75% Tim Banks. I mean, 2 years ago, if we're having this conversation and the poll question was, would you shoot Tim Banks in the leg to get Nico? People would have been buying firearms. It's bizarre.
Yeah, no, you're right. That's very true. And I mean, Nico doesn't seem. I told you guys I thought he was created in a lab to run Josh Heupel's offense. He's not. I mean, he's not that like Tim Tebow to Urban Meyer match made in heaven. So when you go to that, then yeah, you do got to pay Tim Banks for. I will say that. Now I'll say that. I mean, I'll be honest with you, Dave. I go back to Florida, 2006, 2007. Maybe even then, do you pay Tim Tebow or Charlie Strong more if you have NIL? Because those defenses won those titles in 06 and 08.
Yeah, but I think Charlie Strong was a little bit like John Chavis. I think he had. I think agree. that whole narrative back then that Tennessee has as much talent as Florida was dumb. I mean, they didn't. Tennessee had
in the 90s. They did.
No, they didn't. Even when they beat them in they didn't. Even when they beat them in 98, they were outplayed. There were just some key plays during that game. No, I think Tennessee had B+ talent. I think that Florida had A talent to A+. I think Tennessee always had to come. I'm not talking about night and day, but I think Tennessee always had to overcome a slight talent deficit.
I think you are crazy.
Okay.
I can look at the NFL numbers and prove to you that Tennessee had better talent than Florida during that time. Florida just had a coach whose IQ doubled the Tennessee staff combined. Okay. So like I really do think that. I think that.
So you're telling me that you would take Steve Spurrier over Philip Fulmer in a game of chess. Is that what you're telling me?
Yes. I would take Spurrier over Fulmer in a game.
I
would take, no, Dave.
I would take can't spell Citrus Bowl without a U and a T. Glad that Peyton Manning's coming back, 3-time Citrus Bowl MVP.
Dave, I'm going to tell you something crazy. I would take Spurrier over Nick Saban in a game of chess. Now, I think Nick Saban's a better CEO, program runner, recruiter. But Dave, equal talent, one game for your life, someone to coach. Spurrier or Nick Saban.
You know what's crazy about Nick Saban? I was talking to somebody that covers Alabama. And he's a elite coach. He's a better moneymaker. I mean, his dealership, his Mercedes dealership, is blowing up in Tuscaloosa and Birmingham. He's getting all these endorsement deals. He seems like he's on TV all the time.
Which is hilarious because he's not even charismatic enough to be on TV. I don't know how he finagled that.
I know, but it's just somebody was telling me, he said, who would have ever thought that Nick Saban's coaching would not be his greatest strong suit? That's bizarre.
I mean, look, Nick Saban was wasted in coaching. Nick Saban should have been president of the United States. Dude,
that may be a topic for tomorrow. We should have done that around the election. Who would be a better president, Nick Saban, Donald Trump, or Kamala Harris? I will not go political. I will not tell you what I think, but it might.
I would vote for Nick Saban over all three of them. I would.
You don't know any of his policies.
I think I would trust Nick. Okay, put it this way: did you ever watch House of Cards, like getting things through Congress and stuff like that, and wheeling and dealing?
I don't understand all that. Like you, you're smarter than me, Caleb.
Okay, well, obviously part of politics is not what you want to do, but what you can do and how you can negotiate and get things through Congress. Do you think anybody would have been better than that at that than Nick Saban? Like if Nick Saban wants a bill passed, he probably is going to figure out a way to get it passed, isn't he?
Probably. Because he'll be nice about it. He'll negotiate at first, and then he's going to drop the hammer on you.
He does carrot or stick.
Yes. The show Go ahead.
No, he'll actually, just a quick story. LBJ used to do that. Lyndon Johnson, when he was president. I don't know if you know this. LBJ set up a prostitution ring at a hotel right outside of the Capitol Hill, and he bugged it. And so he caught all these senators going in for the prostitution ring, and he would then come back and say, "You're going to come with me on this bill. Otherwise, I'm going to leak the fact that you were just hanging out with a hooker."
If you like that stuff, you've got to watch The Godfather. What is wrong with you?
I do need to watch The Godfather, probably. Yeah. Politics is like the mafia with the way they handle stuff.
Yeah. I mean, this politician says, to Michael Corleone, said, "I'll have your answer by tomorrow at noon, and you'll pay me or you won't do any business in Las Vegas." Michael Corleone says, "Senator, I have my answer now. My answer is not a dime, not even the normal gaming fee license, which you will, of course, pay for me." So the senator thinks he's crazy, and then the next thing you know, the senator wakes up with a dead prostitute.
Oh, interesting.
And they save him from his career being over. That's you love The Godfather, but again, it's like a 6-hour commitment. You have to watch it twice. All right, so go ahead and put up there as our poll question: who would you vote for? Make Kamala and Donald Trump on one line. Okay, I don't want to get into a political discussion, but would you vote for either Kamala or Donald, or would you vote for Nick Saban? Can we do that?
Yes.
All right. The show represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com. We thank Rick Terry Jewelry Design. They want to be your jeweler looking for affordable game day jewelry, a Tennessee tradition. Also, I get to stop by my friends at Sports Treasures, carrying over 5 million sports treasures, so much more. Follow on Facebook for the best sports memorabilia, daily updates. Just go to facebook.com, type in Sports Treasures TN. Stay tuned. Coming up, we have some college football playoff changes that are being discussed. And I'll ask you, what would you change? Again, the show represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com, as we're live from the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studios off Vogue Sports. Why Banks & Jones? Well, it's because they're Tennessee's trial attorney. You can play to win with Banks & Jones because they'll go to trial. You've heard of other lawyers. They say they'll go to trial and fight for you. They won't. They just want to settle. That's the easiest way out. Well, that's not Banks & Jones, led by T. Scott Jones. They won't settle. They'll go to trial for you. Tennessee's trial attorney. They play to win. Truly, Tennessee's trial attorney when it comes to criminal defense or personal injury. Why settle? It's Banks & Jones. T. Scott Jones. banksandjones.com. Dave Hooker here for Dynasty Pools and Spas, your home for the best spas and everything you need to jump right in. Relaxing, therapeutic, absolutely. But what sets Dynasty Pools and Spas apart from others is that you get everything with any spa purchase. You get the cover, Cover lift, the steps, delivery, and chemicals. When Dynasty Pools and Spas delivers your spa from their Athens location within 125 miles, you'll get your own personal hydrotherapy spa. Mention me, Dave Hooker, or Off the Hook Sports, and get $500 off your top quality new spa. Dynasty Pools and Spas, just off the Athens exit. Drop in and receive a free gift from Off the Hook Sports, Dynasty Pools and Spas. Mention Off the Hook Sports for a drop-in prize and that $500 discount, Dynasty Pools and Spas. To check out some of the Dynasty Spa models and to buy spa chemicals, go to dynastypoolsandspas.com. Dynasty Pools and Spas.
Now in its 45th year, the second and third generations continue Joe Newbert's commitment.
His vision of what this business needed to be, we still try to live up to that.
Joe Newbert Collision Center.
With our brand new location on Emory Road, Eye Care Optical is bringing East Tennessee's best eye care to your neighborhood. Doctors Johnston and Combs offer unmatched expertise and care without a trip to Knoxville. Eye Care Optical, now in Powell.
Dave Hooker Show with Caleb Calhoun. Represented by T. Scott Jones. BanksandJones.com. Tennessee's trial attorney. From the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studio, East Tennessee's #1 volume and customer service dealer. Ted Russell Ford and TedRussellLincoln.com. Now to the Dave Hooker Show on Off the Hook Sports.
Welcome back to the show represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, BanksandJones.com. Caleb's dancing, so I assume he likes the new production elements. As for me, I can't hear them, so Caleb has to do this signal of when I'm supposed to talk. So it is very odd, but I've done worse. With John Wilkerson one time, we had a remote all the way out in, oh man, where's ETSU? Like Johnson City?
Yeah. I think it's Johnson City, yeah.
Yeah. So we had a remote, a Saturday remote at me and John Wilkerson used to host Saturday Sports Talk. And we had a remote at a dealership. And it turned out to be an incredibly nice car dealer that just was an incredibly supportive guy. And we had tech issues. It was a 2-hour show. And we talked through our cell phones until 5 minutes left. And I remember telling him, I truly apologize. I don't know what happened because my job was just to show up and talk, right? I mean, I had no idea what happened and still to this day don't. And I said, hopefully we can come down again. He goes, I don't think so.
Oh my gosh.
He's like a super nice guy. So tech issues are part of it. We're fighting through it.
Part of it. It's a thing.
Yeah. I hope everything sounds good on your all's end. And people are arguing whether or not that we should use nil. I'm just going to go ahead and make a rule. We're not going to use nil. It's a new rule.
Dave saying not a nil.
Yeah. Our poll question is what? Brought to you by the UPS Store Hardin Valley, helping individuals and small businesses, wide range of products and services, locally owned and operated. The link is right down below. What do you got?
Who would be your choice for president? Kamala Harris or Donald Trump or Nick Saban? Kamala Harris or Donald Trump is winning 55%. Nick Saban's at 45%. I'm sorry. I'm going Nick Saban. Nick Saban, most of the president is just letting other people make decisions for you because like so many things are going on. But if there's one person who I know could like stop that from happening, it's Nick Saban. You know, some like CIA person become, Nick, we really need to do this. Nick could be like, why don't you step outside and let me make that decision?
Yeah. College football playoff changes are being discussed. It's last look, and it's brought to you by Doctors Campbell, Cunningham, Taylor, and Haun. Life is better when you see better. CCTeyes.com, CCTeyes.com. Caleb, tell me about these potential changes to the college football playoff, and I'll give you my thoughts.
Yeah, so there was a meeting to change the seeding in the college football playoff. Multiple sources indicated at a recent meeting that seeding would be the most likely adjustment. Obviously, in the current structure, the 5 highest-ranked conference champions are guaranteed spots in the bracket, and the 4 highest-ranked champions earn the top 4 seeds and first-round buys. One of the things they're suggesting is not necessarily changing that, but reseeding after the first round. So rather than say like, oh, just the top 4 seeds get a first-round bye, it's more, okay, after the first round, then they'll reseed again. So like, you don't have a situation where Oregon, who's the number 1 seed, has to play Ohio State in the first round. That's kind of what one of their goals is. But again, people are saying that the seeding should be based on ranking no matter what. And I kind of agree. And Greg Sankey, by the way, this is why I keep telling you guys, Greg Sankey's not as smart as y'all think. Okay, he said to The Athletic recently that having a double-digit ranked school getting a bye was never the intent. Well, you authored the college football playoff format. How did you not see that coming?
I think the reseeding thing is hands down the dumbest thing that I've ever heard, because I look out for 2 groups of people first. Number 1, the fans. Number 2, the players. So who was Ohio State? If Tennessee beat Ohio State and Columbus, who were they going to play next?
Ohio State. They would have played Oregon next.
Okay, where?
In the Rose Bowl.
Okay, so I'm sure there are a lot of fans out there that were optimistic and went ahead and put tentative holds with a cancellation clause in there to go to LA and see the Rose Bowl. And you save a little bit more money by booking it early. Basically, college football is telling you, I don't care about your pocketbook. You're going to play it, or your wallet. You're going to pay it no matter what. I think that's incredibly off-putting. I hate that idea. What else is on the docket?
But here's the problem. You can't just seed 1 through 12 with the top 4 get a bye. The reason they won't do that is because that opens the door for Notre Dame to get a first-round bye without playing a conference title game, to which I say, who cares? Stop having conference title games. They're dumb, okay, in this day and age in college football with the extra game. The other one is
the buys just need to go away. That's the one change. I mean, that needs to be the end of that.
Yeah, just go to 8 teams.
8 or 16. The buy thing didn't work. Thanks for trying. Do something different.
Yes. There are also others who would like to see 2 rounds of college football playoff home games instead of 1. That's how they think they can make the buys work. So, like, basically, if you get a bye, you're rewarded with a home game. But people are really worried about that, because then all of a sudden you will eliminate certain bowl games that are part of this. The Cotton Fiesta, Petro, Sugar and Orange are all part of the bowl games. They still want to make the bowl. They're trying to have their cake and eat it too, where they're making these elite bowls carry some weight while at the same time having a playoff. And Dave, I just don't think they can ever accept that's not going to happen. There's no status of, like, Ohio State beat Oregon in the Rose Bowl. You think Ohio State's out here celebrating, we're the Rose Bowl champions, like you used to, or are they like, all right, on to the next round now? That's what they're thinking after they beat Oregon. You can't have both. And I've tried to tell you guys that for a long time. But they can't coexist, not to mention the lesser part of it. The other part of this is...
Here's where you and I disagree on that. I still cared about a lot of games that I wouldn't have otherwise, because I wanted to see how it affected the team I cover, Tennessee, and other teams in the SEC. So I actually completely disagree with you. I think it made the regular season more intriguing.
No, this was about the bowl games. The actual bowl games themselves. No, they're trying to, like, the thing is, they're thinking about giving teams who get a first round bye a home game as well into the second round. But then you would have to eliminate some of the New Year's Six bowl games that like host these playoff games, and the bowl games want to still host the games because they want to matter. And I'm like, at some point, college football is going to have to cut bait with the bowls altogether, aren't they, Dave? If they're going to keep this playoff going.
Yes. And I don't know when that's going to be, but it needs to be very soon. Other changes I want you to throw at me. I'll give you a thumbs up or thumbs down. Last Look brought to you by Doctors Campbell, Cunningham, Taylor, and Haun.
The first step to better vision is to visit ccteyes.com. The information you need is easy to access, and setting an appointment is as simple as clicking the tab. Doctors Campbell, Cunningham, Taylor, and Haun, and Eye Care Optical at CCTI.
All right, Caleb, give me some more changes, please.
One of the big ones is the protection for teams that make the conference title game. One of the things that they were very big on is they didn't want to punish you for losing a conference title game. They weren't going to drop you below a team that didn't play a conference title game if you were ahead of them. They weren't going to do that. some SEC and Big Ten programs and officials are upset about that because they look at an SMU and Clemson and they see SMU get blown out and say, how is SMU supposed to play in the college football playoff? How are we supposed to be serious about that? That's going to create a real tension again because, look, anybody with eyes knows that SMU was not a top 12 team in college football this year. And
again,
but they were
the one change I would make is that it would be a formula. I think that would solve everything. And if it were up to me, I would make a formula and I would make 8 teams, no conference title tie-ins, no buys. But I'm okay with, as option B, 16 teams to make it even so you don't have buys. So that's where I stand, the changes that I would make.
Yes. So the next one is nothing is going the final thing is, what does this look like going forward? Well, according to a Big Ten source, nothing is changing next year. So it's going to be exactly the same as it was this year, pretty much. ESPN and the CFP are under contract. They have to provide ESPN with either 13 or 11 games. That's what the contract is built on. Right now, there are 11 games played, but they can go up to 13 if they do a 14-team field, which they might do after 2026. That's where the talk is after that. I think where this is headed, and I think this is stupid, but this is what they're going to do, Dave. The entire field is going to be auto bids, which is 4 SEC teams get auto bids, 4 Big Ten teams get auto bids, 3 or 2 Big 12 teams, 2 ACC teams, something like that. That's
where
how
would that leave Notre Dame?
There's going to be room for at-large bids.
Okay.
There will be certain room for at-large bids, but there's protected auto bids for conferences. That's what the SEC and the Big Ten want more than anything, because here's why. They're going to ditch very soon the conference title games. You know what they're going to do instead of conference title games?
Wait on me.
They're going to do a play-in game for their final auto bid spot. That's what the week will be. So say goodbye to the SEC championship. Instead of 1 and 2 playing to win the conference, you're going to have 4 and 5 playing to be the 4th auto bid. Again, that is stupid to me. I think at this point, given how mega the conferences are, I think the SEC and Big Ten should go ahead and break off, ditch the conferences altogether, and just have 60 teams in a field, and you schedule you're on your own who you want to play, and then they just rank the top 12.
Travis says a formula. You mean the BCS? Yes, that is exactly what I would do. And the reason they're not doing that is it has nothing to do with the competitive nature. It has to do with they can sell a television show and the advertising around it each and every week when the college football playoff selection committee makes its announcement. Don't kid yourself. That's exactly what it's about, Caleb. I mean, I don't know what that show makes, but it's a revenue generator that didn't exist just a year ago. Or
yes,
a couple of years ago, excuse me.
And for people who think ESPN and the college football playoff aren't one and the same entity and thinking about the same things, you're crazy. They're all in this together. It's a revenue generator. Dave's absolutely right. And they want the TV show. I'm surprised they don't do it earlier, quite honestly.
I am too. I would not be surprised if they had a preseason college football playoff committee show. As a matter of fact, if I had to bet on whether they will or won't, I would bet that they will. What would you bet? If somebody said you got $100 and you got to bet it one way or the other, within 5 years, they'll have a preseason college football playoff show.
I think within 5 years they will too. I think you're totally right, which is going to make it even worse because they're going to be so biased to their preseason rankings that, like, you're so right. That's exactly what they're going to do. Oh my gosh. They need the team because, wow, that's happening, guys.
The show represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com. I can't tell you enough great things about T. Scott Jones and what he's able to do in a courtroom because you probably don't want to hear about it, but as it concerns me. But I'll tell you what, he is one incredible individual. So I'd highly encourage you, if you find yourself in any sort of legal issue, to go with T. Scott Jones at Banks & Jones. Also, we broadcast live from the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln studio, your home for the finest vehicles in Knoxville. I'm waiting on that perfect Bronco, and the selection is unbelievable. I just stopped in yesterday, and I texted Nick White. And I said, what about this one? And he goes, well, I thought you wanted the full size. I'm like, well, this looks so awesome that I might go with this. So I'm vacillating back and forth. They're working with me. No pressure. It's phenomenal, and I cannot wait to jump in that Bronco. Ted Russell Ford Lincoln views it as an honor to serve their neighbors. That's why they're so committed to providing exceptional customer service. That's better than driving off in the car of your dreams. Ted Russell Ford Lincoln, believes it's a pleasure to do great things for people every day. The show represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com. Other attorneys say they will go to trial. They won't. They'll settle and settle for less. Have a fantastic day, everyone. This, with Caleb Calhoun and me, Dave Hooker, has been Off the Hook Sports.